really can't believe there's people here because I saw you all leaving for Luis Fonsi yesterday, so.
Yeah, they didn't go to bed. They just came straight from there here.
Well, that's what being Latino is all about.
That's right. Ana, great to have you.
Thank you.
I got to tell you, sometimes I'm watching television or I'm watching something on the internet and I think to myself, thank God for Ana Navarro. Somebody who says it the way it is, somebody who says what we're all thinking. You just have been a breath of fresh air to so many of us. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for that, first of all. Second of all, what's going on in your life? Seems like it's been a quiet week in Washington, D.C.
Well, about the first thing you said, thank you, and thank you to all who are here. You know, it's been a hell of a difficult 3 years for all of us, I think, for our community in particular. It's been 3 years where they've tried to pit one group of Americans against the other for political gain, where immigrants and people who look like us and sound like us and have names like ours have been demonized and used as political pawns for political gain. It's been 3 years where we have been defined as the others and as criminals and as rapists, and our community has been attacked amongst other communities. But I also think it's been 3 good years because I see a level of wokeness in America. I think we've begun to take democracy a little bit for granted, the rights and responsibilities that come with that. And you know, it's so very important not to stop being offended and not to stop being outraged and not to accept the unacceptable and not to normalize what is not normal, not to accept lies, not to accept attacks against our community, because we are America. No president of the United States, nobody should be asking if you love Hispanics more than you love your country. We are this country, you idiot. We are this country. So, and you know, and a lot of times you can feel like a broken record and like a hamster in a wheel, you know, because it's like, when is this going to be over? How many times am I going to have to say this? How many times am I gonna have to, you know, go be the pissed off Latina on TV? and so what you just told me, you know, really means a lot to me because it keeps me going. And believe me, aquí hay pissed off Latina para rato.
Well, there has been a lot to talk about over the last 3 years, and I think we all feel the fatigue of the constant issues that we feel like we have to respond to, that if we don't respond to, somehow we're being negligent in that process. But at the same time, we have to continue to work. We have to continue to lead. We have to continue to set an example for our families and our children and not just be reactive to what's out there. You know, one of the things that this event is all about is bringing together thought leaders and business leaders and sort of trying to change that narrative about the Latino community from something that is clearly untrue to something that is more fact-driven, right? And so there's data that's out there, and I know you're not an economist, and I know that's not what you're here to talk about.
I can't balance a checkbook.
But, you know, I mean, it's one of the ways that we have to fight back, right? We are, as a Latino community, we are driving this economy. We have the highest workforce participation of any other demographic. We're forming new businesses at a faster rate than any other segment of the population. We're buying homes at a faster rate than any other segment of the population. We are the cavalry that is going to save the U.S. economy, and people need to know that too.
You're not going to get to the weeds, and you're not going to get to the facts if you put up with being attacked and offended. So for me, if you want to actually make a difference, I would say everything you're doing is incredibly important, but you got to go out and vote. Because only if you are respected politically, only if we don't put up with a president who offends us and demonizes us, will anybody listen to the contributions that we make as Latinos to this country.
That's absolutely right.
And it's contributions in every aspect, right? The economic aspects that you just mentioned, professionally, culturally. I mean, really. I have 4 words for you for the benefits of Latinos in the United States and why having Hispanics here matters so much. Sean Spicer dancing salsa. If you want any more fact and proof that America is better and that we make America great, go take a look at the clip of the guy in dressed like a lime green parakeet with ruffles, butchering salsa. So
salsa.
For me, we're at a critical juncture. Yep. We're 14 months away from an election. That time goes by a lot quicker than people think. It's time to organize, it's time to get active, it's time to get informed, it's time to get engaged. And we have to be reactive and we have to be proactive. And we have every right to be outraged and offended and mad, but we've got to channel all of those feelings into something. The other day I read this story, I saw this on the news. Have you guys heard about this famous Popeyes chicken sandwich?
Yeah.
My husband is in search for one. I don't know. One of these days he's gonna ask me to drive to Georgia to find one. But so I think that chicken sandwich is like the Loch Ness monster because I keep hearing about it. I haven't seen it. But there was this long line somewhere in the South of people waiting for this chicken sandwich, and this young man came up with voter registration sheets and registered the people who were in line to buy the sandwich to vote. That is the kind of thing you can do on a daily basis to make a difference. There's no shame or qualms. Thanksgiving is coming. Everybody should get asked, ¿quieres comer? ¿Ya votaste? ¿Ya te registraste para votar? ¿Ya te inscribiste a votar? Porque si no, no te doy tortilla. So, we are, folks, this is urgent. This is urgent. 92-year-old man getting hit with a brick in his face because he looks like us. A woman getting attacked and assaulted because she wears a t-shirt that has a Puerto Rican flag. Women in New York City, you're not even talking about Alabama or Mississippi, getting berated because they speak Spanish. Our kids in our schools getting bullied and told to go back to where you came from.
Yep.
So we cannot accept this, and we have to have this level of urgency, when we wake up every day and see how we and it's gonna give you anxiety. No importa, that's what tequila is for.
I knew it was something good. No, you're absolutely right. There's a role each of us have to play and have a responsibility to play. And you didn't even mention the El Paso tragedy and the fact that people are actually seeking us out and are killing people because of the rhetoric that's out there right now. It is, we're at a crisis level, no question about that.
It is the rhetoric that Donald Trump uses.
Yep.
It is calling us invaders. It is inspiring white supremacists. It is empowering discrimination. It is legitimizing bigotry. We cannot continue to put up with that.
You're right. You're absolutely right. One of the challenges out there, and you're a member of the media, is that in this world of social media and technology, people live in echo chambers, right? And so, they get the news that they want to get, and they hear the things that they want to hear, and all it does is reinforce their beliefs already. What are your thoughts about how we combat that issue?
I think it's really important. It's a really important topic. We often talk about diversity in this country and what diversity means, and too often diversity means an African American, check, a Latino, check, a gay LGBTQ person, check. But we have stopped being able to embrace diversity of thought. And if you ask me what one of our biggest problems in America today is, I would tell you it is that. So I think each of us, first we have to be very judicious consumers of news, because not everything out there is news, and not everything out there is fact-based. There are a lot of things that are completely made up and some that are based on alternative facts. And it's up to us as consumers. The media is not, they're not 501c3s, folks. They are for-profit corporations, and you've got to, support and not support. You can do a lot with your wallet. And when you have news out there, when you've got somebody out there that wants to believe that Bill and Hillary Clinton are running a sex ring out of the basement of a pizza shop that does not have a basement, to the point where they show up with a rifle to go rescue the victims of this sex ring in the non-existent basement. You can't do anything about that, right? if somebody wants to live a life based on lies, you cannot do anything about them. What you can do is share your story. What you can do is be a vessel, a vehicle to talk about the contributions that Hispanics make, the difference that Hispanics make, the economic power that Hispanics have. And I find that the most powerful way of telling that and doing that is by really talking about who we are, putting a face and a name to these stories of challenges and struggles and success and perseverance and American dream. It's very hard to hate up close. And so there might be people out there who hate immigrants.
That's a great statement.
But, and who are against immigration reform until their neighbor or their church member or the kid who plays with their child is getting deported. And then all of a sudden, you see people who voted one way or the other say, you know what, but this is not what we intended. Well, it might not have been what you intended, but there's a result. And you're seeing it. And so I think it's really incumbent upon all of us. And I hope there comes a day where we can just be, right? Just be a Latino, just be a woman, just be, LGBTQ, just be black and not have to worry about anything. It must be so nice to be a white male. My next life, I might come back as well.
I don't think so.
But we are not there. We're far, far from that point where we can just be. And so, I know it's a pain in the neck. And I know it's an imposition for some, but you know what? You got no option right now. You must represent. And if you are in a position of power, if you're in a position of mentorship, and all of us are in one way or another, we must represent because we must speak for those who cannot speak. We must speak for those that live in fear. We must speak for those children separated at the border.
Absolutely.
And we must speak for those DACA kids who live in fear of deportation or whose parents are getting deported. Right now, get energy y jódanse, because you gotta represent.
Absolutely. So taking that thought, and by the way, I love that statement you meant about you can't hate up close, right? It reminded me of an anecdote where I was driving from San Diego to Palm Springs, and part of that back road out there is very different from some of the politics that exist in the cities. And I pulled over to get some gas, and there was a pickup truck in front of me, and it had the locker up sticker on there, and it reminded me, oh, I'm in this part of the state. But I got off the car and I went in to pay for the gasoline, and there was a Latino woman behind the cash register, and her mother was sitting behind her with a baby. And everybody in line in front of me clearly was from that neighborhood, but they all knew her, and they all gave her a hug. And it made me think, these are the folks that somehow have the perception that Latinos are, a negative element in this country, but they think, except for the ones that I know, right? And so that really resonated with me. What else do we need to be doing, Ana? You talk about going out there at the grassroots level, voting, speaking your mind, fighting back, not being afraid to take on what is clearly evil out there. We had Maria Teresa here a couple days ago, and she was talking about the fact that 80-90% of the funding for Voto Latino comes from outside of the Latino community, right? So we haven't learned the discipline yet of how to play the political process, which includes making political contributions to organizations like that and to candidates that support our agenda. So, what other sort of recommendations, advice can you give to business leaders and people who come to conferences like this?
Business leaders, people who come to conferences like this, are often get access to political leaders. You often get invited to donor events, or you get invited to the town halls, or you get invited to some of the events. And it's back to what I said, you need to represent. You should not be afraid to make sure that the issues important for our community are being discussed. And it's not just immigration, and it's not just discrimination, it's healthcare, it's national security, because Hispanic issues are American issues. But I think it's something that we have to have a specific purpose and keep it as part of our lives on a daily basis. Right now, we just do. There is no, having the numbers doesn't matter if you don't flex the muscle.
Numbers are just numbers.
Numbers are just numbers unless you show you have power. So there's only numbers of power in numbers if you use that power. And we've got the ability to make a difference in elections.
Yep.
And yet we don't, because we don't have the voter turnout. And look, I know, and I hope 2016 was a lesson. There were a lot of people who, you know, maybe their love tank wasn't getting filled, right? Maybe, because that's the thing. Republicans fall in line. These damn Democrats, they want to feel things. They want to have butterflies in their stomachs and fall in love and get tingly and all of that. You know, they want to get inspired. I can't tell you how many friends of mine, Republicans, who didn't like Donald Trump, came back to voting for him at the end because they cared about a Supreme Court justice, or they cared about Cuba policy, or, you know, whatever. They thought, wouldn't it be great to elect an orange person? But there were a lot of people who were against him who didn't come out to vote because they didn't trust her, because they felt neglected, because they weren't energized.
Or they didn't feel that warm thing.
So they were going to try and, you know, some of them cast a protest vote. You know, wouldn't it be fun to vote for Jill Stein? Wouldn't it be fun to vote for whatever, the pot-smoking guy from New Mexico? Yeah. And then they woke up the next day with a hangover, and that hangover is going to last for years, and that hangover is breaking our country. Yesterday, I read two stories, and I read them back to back. One was, and I don't know if you guys read about this, one was about an African-American girl in a private school in Virginia who wore dreads, who wore braids, and she got pushed down to the floor by classmates who cut her hair forcibly because they thought it was ugly and it was nappy, a little girl. And then I read a story about upstate New York where 10 and 11-year-old children, 10 and 11-year-old children in a school bus attacked another African-American child. And the school bus monitor sat there and did nothing about that. And so, you know, what we have seen in these last few years, and that's been those seeds that have been planted of empowering and legitimizing discrimination and bigotry and racism, that's going to be around for a long, long time. So we're on a long haul fight here.
So Ana, I just want to close by once again thanking you. The word that comes to mind when I think of you is courage. And I think we all have to be more courageous in this process. You've been a beacon of light to so many of us, and such an inspiration to so many women in particular, so many Latino women. I can't tell you how much that means to all of us. When we were backstage, though, we were having a little conversation about living in New York versus Miami or Florida, and she said, I can't live in New York, the taxes are too high. So I remembered, oh, that's right, she is a Republican. She's a traditional Republican who has a conscience. So thank you for
not to mention that my husband lives in Miami. I don't think that would
work so well.
That would make him
with Elle.
Make him happy, right?
By the way, Elle is one of my favorite people in the world. So
mine
to see
too.
You guys together, you know, just amazing. I'm glad to hear that. But anyways, everybody give a big round of applause to Ana Navarro.
Thank you.